Welcome, Facebook viewers. This is your next episode of the Bond and Botus Facebook Live. We appreciate you joining us for these Facebook Live events that we do every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. We have been doing these events for close to a year now, and our objective here is just to address items, issues that are of concern to people in our communities as we go through unusual times, dealing with a pandemic such as our country hasn't dealt with in close to 100 years. Just to begin here, I want to remind you that the Bond and Botus Law Offices, what we do is we help people with money problems. If you're having financial problems, and a lot of people are right now, people have lost jobs, had to shut down businesses. If you are, we are offering absolutely free initial consultations, and with the pandemic, we're doing them by phone or video. We'll do them from the safety of your own home or office, and there's no charge. We just encourage you to reach out, be proactive. If you're having financial problems or if you see them on the horizon, you're going to do yourself a favor if you at least reach out and get some advice at this point. You can schedule an appointment by calling the number that you see on your screen or by going to our website. You can gather a little bit more information on our website and then schedule a consultation there. But please let us help you if we can. So in today's Facebook Live episode, we're going to discuss a topic that is very near and dear to those of you who have school-age children, and to those of us who are concerned about school-age children. My guest, Susie Smith, is a professional. She is a very successful professional lady, but she is also a mother. And Susie has dealt with the issues that a lot of us are right now, and that involves the challenges of remote learning for our children. And how our schools can do the best job possible for our students, for our children, and more importantly, from Susie's perspective, Susie, how we can advocate on behalf of our children with schools to make sure they get the best education possible. Susie, I know from our conversations earlier that this issue is just so important to you. Why don't you start off just by giving us a little bit of background on you and how you got involved with this issue?
Yeah, absolutely, Brad. Thank you so much for having me and tackling this really important issue. Appreciate it. I know it's one that
Absolutely.
It's one that is it's important for families and also if you have employees who have children. So it really does impact every aspect of our local community. Just to give you a little bit of background about me for your audience here. As you know, I'm a mother of two. I have two sons. I have a 6-year-old named Brigham and a 7-year-old named Tucker. Brigham is in kindergarten and Tucker's in 2nd grade. I really shifted my extra time from working and volunteering really in the PTO on some fundraising that I was doing for our elementary school PTO. Having a background in sales, you're always picked as the person that's going to go find the money. And I shifted my focus once the pandemic hit, and I saw how it was impacting not only my children, but all kinds of community members, my clients across the country. And at that point, I, decided to take a step back from the PTO and really put forth any energy that I had outside of work and my kids in nights and weekends and focusing on, really what are the impacts of virtual learning and how can we advocate for our kids and essentially really just the choice for an in-person education for truly those who want and need it. The virtual option has always been there, recently here with the pandemic for online learning, but that option for in-person, for the most part, in many areas has not been. And, you know, a little bit about my kids, you know, Brigham in kindergarten last year was at a private Y program. It was like an early advancement program, and he was receiving, you know, very minimal services through the IU for some of his behavioral issues, very, very light services. You know, the Y had shut down and he went into a virtual learning program with our public school that I got him into early. And, you know, really he has spiraled out of control over the last year. So I've witnessed, you know, a happy, intelligent, socially, you know, adjusted child turn into really somebody I can't take most places. And, you know, now he has a very extensive IEP, has wraparound services, has a personal aide through the school, sees therapists and psychologists. It's, you know, we can go into that a bit when we're talking about some of the specifics. But that's Brigham. He's had a tough road. And then Tucker in second grade had a concussion at the beginning of the year. And from that, in virtual learning, had a lot of medical issues and was not able to do online learning. So, you know, without having the ability to put him in school and having access to a teacher, which is part of his rights, you know, to have free and appropriate education, we ended up moving him to a Catholic school. So I kind of have experience in what the virtual hybrid 5-day in person looks like across the board. And then, you know, obviously have a lot of friends and contacts around the country that I've been speaking with and understanding what are the other impacts that are affecting other families with, you know, children with autism or, you know, income gaps and minority gaps and disparities that impact, you know, other children as well.
Susie, you know, I said before we started, most of the time I wish for the days when my kids, who are now all young adults, were young again, because you know, as they get older, you miss those days. But boy, it's got to be a challenge. If they were in school at this point, I can only imagine the issues that you and so many other parents are wrestling with. You know, with COVID, we think about financial issues, we think about health issues, but this is really a serious issue. Kids are missing out on such important parts of their life, whether it's just the educational process itself or the social activities that happen while you're in a live education experience. And it's worrisome. It's worrisome for the future on a broad base, in addition to what it must be for you and other individual parents. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper, and let's try to get more specific. What in your mind are some of the dangers of prolonged homeschooling? If this goes on for a significant additional period of time, what are the dangers?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, there are dangers that impact every aspect of life right now. I think from a financial aspect, those who can homeschool their children might be in a better position where they can sit with their child all day. There are a lot of parents who have, you know, had to pay an extra cost in childcare, or, you know, get children into learning pods, or, you know, we even had our kids at one point in a virtual kind of camp program, or not. It was virtual learning. It was at a karate studio, and on the days that they weren't in school, they would be there full time, having people help them, you know, throughout the day. And then when they were in school, they would provide some transportation. That ended up being a cost that actually is more expensive than my second grader's private school right now. Catholic schools are not incredibly you know, unaffordable. So that was a place that provided him full-time education, which is what he needed. So I think, the financial impact really hits a lot of people, extra costs. But the people who can't afford childcare or can't be home with their kids, those kids are sometimes left at home all day for 10 to 12 hours. Older siblings taking care of younger siblings. And that's really scary. Kids who are left home and who are, virtually learning as teenagers or as kind of pre-teenagers are at the highest risk for suicide than any other population in the entire world. So, there's impacts there on mental health for the children. Teachers are stretched thin. They're, getting bounced around, putting in long hours. So it's not been an easy road for them as well.
Yeah.
And parents are stressed. They're stressed about how their kids are doing. So many kids are failing and are falling behind, and, offering the pandemic as an excuse, I don't think is acceptable at 1 year in. We've done the research and with the, group of advocates that in my school district and across the country, and have really found those gaps to be very hard to close. And when you go into, certain, groups, whether it might be minority or, economically disadvantaged folks, those gaps are really impossible to close at some point. And then, you have lack of motivation for some of the older kids who may have had plans to go to college, or, just unenthused really with education in general. So I think it hits a lot of the, the social skills. Kids aren't really seeing their friends and being able to socially engage at that level. And that's really important, especially at the, really across the board, the younger kids, so they can establish that those relationships, and older kids are really, dealing with the isolation of virtual learning. So the mental health, the emotional, social, financial impacts. If you don't have kids and you have employees that have kids, they're probably really stressed out right now and worrying about their kids' future and how this all is going to impact them later down the road. That's the scariest part.
I don't know if other people have the same difficulty I did at one point with this issue, but I remember very clearly in one of our earlier Facebook Live episodes, we had as a guest Dr. Dale Wisely, who's a local child and adolescent psychologist, very well respected. And he made the point to me that most studies show that students, as a rule, are safer at school than they are at home. And, I guess just personally, I wanted to say, well, no, my kids are safer in my home than they are at some school. But that's not indeed the case, is it?
No, you're exactly right. It's not even just, having more eyes on your child, but a lot of children receive services in school for nutrition, for mental health services. One thing I didn't even touch on is child abuse cases are, reported cases are down over 30%. Now, we all know that the isolation in the pandemic has brought an increase in child abuse and domestic violence and substance abuse. And the fact that those mandated reporters aren't able to see these children is showing that those unreported cases are going unwatched, and kids are suffering even more so than they were before. So those parts are increasingly scary. But you're right. I mean, the science is out, and the CDC has said that kids are safest when they're in school.
Yeah, and it's it makes so much sense when you think through it, because there are multiple sets of eyes on them while they're at school. So many parents just aren't able to provide childcare, as you said earlier, and keep an eye well on their children, especially during the workday. So it's very important to get our schools open back up. Susie, you and I, you're located in Pennsylvania, is that correct?
I am. I'm outside of Philadelphia.
and I'm sorry, but our offices are in Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee. And before we started, you asked about how schools are treating these issues in the states in which our offices are located. And my response was, I guess what you found in most places, there's just no uniform response. Each school system seems to be handling these issues just a little bit better, or a little bit different.
Right.
Some are doing a better job than others, but unfortunately, it's often those areas that may be more disadvantaged, or where lower income people that just are not getting the type help that they need from their local school systems. Now, we've got this issue. What's the answer? What do we need to do to address this problem from your perspective, Susie?
That's a great question. We've been pushing for a year, a strong group of parents that I've connected with locally in my district. And, we have contacts that have made the change. They've had their districts change courses. And I think, that's really the most compelling motivation for me, is that there really is a way to get schools to listen to you and change. One aspect that we kind of blindly, or at least I did in my past, is we thought that these schools districts, especially the good ones, I moved to this area with my children specifically for the schools from Baltimore, and the schools are all handling it very differently, and I think that's a challenge too. We're all over the place. We blindly trusted these schools and the school boards to make the best decision possible for our children. And at the end of the day, it's impossible to make the best choices for every single child. They're all different. Some are doing well in online learning. So we can't look at it and say it's complete failure. I would say the majority are not. And that's what the statistics have shown us, is that there are, gender inequalities. Boys, for instance, I have two boys. There are statistics that say boys don't do as well. Younger children, the screen time and the tech addiction issues are challenging. But, really looking at your school board, and a lot of are up for election this year. And, I have friends who are going and running for school board to try to impact some change on those votes. At the beginning of this year, our school district, which is Westchester, area school district, about 12,000 students, decided to run in a virtual model instead of a hybrid or in person. And that was an 8-1 vote. I think highlighting the individuals who are deciding these really impactful decisions on your children. And run for school board, find people that are willing to support your cause and put them in a place of power. So I think that's one that's they're making the decisions truly. I think two, pointing out, the impacts really in your local community. Our group put together an impact video of students in, all kinds of issues that they're having with virtual learning, and sent that to the school board, to our administrators, and also to our health department. In Chester County, our health department is in charge of Chester County and Delaware County, which are two huge counties outside of Philadelphia. There's no medical doctor on that staff, and they're not following national guidelines, which is 6 feet when feasible. They put 6 feet as a mandate, and as a result, every single school in both of those counties is not open full time. Now, a neighboring county that actually has a medical doctor in their health department, half of their schools are open, either hybrid or in person. One of the largest districts in that county is opening for full-time 5-day in person. So it can be done. And these aren't differing factors. They're neighboring counties with the same issues, same impacts, same student load. I mean, the virus hasn't impacted us any differently. So I think, that local health department especially, within each state. Look and see how your schools are making decisions on learning. And, be a squeaky wheel. Send your concerns to your superintendent, your school board, your teachers, your principal. They really need to hear from a lot of people. Recently, I requested an open Q&A town hall with our superintendent and our school board, and was denied 3 times, and basically had demanded it. Now this morphed into a information session on YouTube where you submit questions. So it's not an open discussion, which is really unfortunate. And I think, that bigger conversation needs to be in person if possible, and not behind a computer screen. They need to hear from parents, and hear from not just the same 10, 12 parents, but, encourage others to speak up. There are a lot of people that I talk to that are afraid because of social implications, or their jobs might be more on the public side of things. And they don't want any, their kid in the spotlight or their names out there. Family members, I've seen families torn apart, and, friends torn apart. And, what I'm doing and in my community is not popular. Everybody's very split, and that part's hard.
I think the key here, though, is so many issues that our country is facing right now. Yes, get involved. Do exactly what Susie's saying. But be positive. Try to come up with positive solutions. It doesn't help to just complain. Now, we know we've got problems. Do what Susie's doing. Be positive and come up with ideas that can be utilized to make the situation better. Susie, I think the educational component is important, but there's so much more at school. Extracurricular activities, athletics, special education type programs. I hate to say it, but when I was in high school, I went to school not just because I wanted to get smarter. I went to school because I wanted to, participate in sporting events, because I wanted to hang out in the hallway, all those type things. As I understand it, that there's virtual, there's in person, and then there's halfway, where kids are in school some and at home some. Do you feel like we're moving further along towards more in-person classes as time goes on? Are we making progress?
I think we are. More schools are opening. What we're seeing in the big cities, like in Chicago and Philly, most notably, they're dealing with a lot of union issues, which have really held them back. And, I think learning what are your individual schools, what's holding them back. I connected with this Wisconsin group that successfully had advocated for their school to open 5 days a week. And I said, what's the secret sauce? How did you do it? And they were working with really an advocate, at somebody who was providing some resources for them on how you get this done. It's a group that's Citizens for Change. And, one of the biggest things that I didn't even realize is that the public schools are public. You can put through a right to know request for anything you want. Performance data, we had already put through requests for that, but these are open records. You can look at, failures and showcase the academic performance, maybe even pieces that they're not going to share with you. Those pieces, I think, are important to put in front of your community. I think, in addition to being vocal, being helpful. And I think you hit on that. Just because you're advocating for a choice for in-person education doesn't mean that you're anti-teacher, anti-school district. Oh. It doesn't at all. You can love your school district and community and not be happy with what's going on, and really try to partner to impact some positive change for everybody. So I think that there's a stigma there. I think there are a lot of people that are very scared still of the virus. So they'll hear from a lot of people that say, stay closed. This is scary stuff. And there's a lot of fear mongering happens in person at school. I don't know that we're moving as fast as we should be into the right models. In Baltimore, their school districts have been closed in Baltimore County, essentially being in virtual since the pandemic. They announced it one day after the presidential election that they were going to open up, and we try not to look at this as a political stance, but our children being held as political pawns, it's really kind of scary to see how the timing of these things takes place. So they're opening up for some sort of hybrid program. Our school district has gotten flip-flopped all over the place, virtual. And then after Christmas, we were in a hybrid, then they went virtual again because people were traveling and quarantining, and then have moved back into a hybrid. We have ELL students that are in 5 days a week. So English as a second language, the school district has prioritized. They prioritized IEPs initially. So students with some disabilities were able to go in 4 days. And then, some of these academic factors started coming out, and now they're picking and choosing and selecting kids based on classroom size. And it's all across the board on how they're allowing some students to come in more than 2 days into this 4-day model. My son in kindergarten is in 4 days. On the day they're virtual, which is Wednesday, it is such a failure on that Wednesday that we actually have an aide that's provided full time for this one child at the cost of the school district to help him try to get through his day, and it's still not successful. So for a kid that deals with challenges in consistency, not having that consistency, even with that one day, is awful. We've seen progress with him when he's in school, and a lot of benefits that that socially and his behaviors have gotten better. So I don't think hybrid is getting us anything. I truly don't. It's getting us a little bit of what we deserve, or are right. I truly think that opening schools up to those who want to be in there and allowing those who want to learn virtually is where it needs to be. The teachers cannot be expected to handle a hybrid and that's a lot of work. Let's be frank, that's a lot of work. So
already have tough jobs.
I mean, all the COVID money that's going to these school districts, and they didn't get paid hazard pay. That would be the first thing that I would have done is pay the teachers, because staffing is an issue. You have, they had administrators going in, and they're basically asking the parents to volunteer to be subs. So now you're teaching at home and in school. The staffing part is a really hard component, especially in like special needs classes, because those they're closer touch, they're quarantining more, and then they're not having the staff, they're not following the IEPs and the special needs of these kids. So it's a failure across the board.
What if a parent has a child with special needs? What's the best advice you can give them to make sure that their child's needs are met as well as possible, Susie?
That's a fantastic question. I wasn't in a place where I had a child with, quote unquote special needs until really this past year. So
right. Nobody expects that, but it's something that many of us encounter, and you've got to address it. And this is a tough time. So yeah, please tell us what you've learned about what parents can do.
Yeah, it's absolutely a great question. I got involved with some task forces locally. So what you'll find in state, their Facebook pages, they're local task forces that are like a right to education task force. It's a .org. They have them across the nation. They regularly, these individuals go to like PBIS, those positive behavioral conferences as parents. So I know that they're functioning across the country. I don't know how effectively they're touching in individual communities. I found that my local one was only a handful of people were really represented within the county, and I was kind of scratching my head as to how that was even possible. But when it was brought to me, I hopped on a call with that leader who has special needs children. I think she's an autistic child, and then a child with ADHD who are older, and she was able to walk me through. Here's the process for getting wraparound services for your child.
Oh, great.
Yeah, you have to get Medicaid, which I didn't realize because I've never been, a person in that income bracket. And like,
Right.
Medicaid, I'm not going to qualify, and I don't want that. She's like, no, you
Right.
have to get Medicaid, because if you don't have Medicaid for your child, you can't get an assessment. So, looking into it, there's a loophole of Medicaid that is for mental health and disability issues. So if you have a child with special needs, absolutely they should go through that Medicaid process. It is an awful process to go through. It is not easy. If you're having trouble, one of the best suggestions that was provided to me is go get your state rep and senators to take care of it. They'll take care of it like that. And I've been involved in the political world as well, and I never realized, well, yeah, we should be calling them. And it was kind of eye-opening if you're not getting things done. We've emailed senators and state reps about school opening and the impacts there. But also, hey, I'm having an issue with getting Medicaid for my kid, or getting the services that they need, and they will work to get it done. So I think utilizing some of our representatives within our individual states is a great way to accomplish that. And then also going to the head. So where are these special services? Where are they operating out of? For our community, it's through the IU, which I believe is a nationwide resource. So go to the local IU, go on LinkedIn, go wherever, go on their website, find out who the director is. That's who you need to talk to. Talking to that director saved me a ton of time, because what they'll end up going through is a process of evaluation, and you have to get all these third-party agencies involved. And a lot of them during COVID are either not going out and seeing people or not accepting intake. But she will literally, the director that I connected with said, you need to call this, that you could go through 30 different companies, but call this one company, because I know that they're doing intake. And within a day, I was able to set an appointment, and it was actually very seamless. So now in the process of kind of getting Brigham some of those wraparound services, which are additional government basically provided services for in-home care. Never thought he'd be there, but that's where we are right now. So I think, just seeing if you're eligible for some of those services that might not be available to you. And the IU was actually doing a program for reimbursement for childcare as well, which I wasn't aware of until I talked to the director. It wasn't publicized, and
who is doing this program?
The IU, so it was the intermediate unit.
Okay.
So look into some of those factors, because you can actually get reimbursed if you have a child in some of these learning centers or pre-approved areas that you can send, if you need to, your kid to a center where they're getting some of the support that they need. And I thought that was really interesting, and I was surprised at what the eligibility for income looked like, because it was actually 6 figures. It was $114,000 if you have 2 children. So I think that's much more attainable than some of the eligibility brackets that they set forth for childcare credits of any means. So those pieces were incredibly important for me to get my child what he needs at this time. And then within the school, look at the resources. They have school counselors, they have therapists, they're psychologists that come in, through those third-party IU, related services that can help your children. Talk to their teachers, talk to the special ed department, and if they have an IEP or you think that they might need an IEP or a 504, then you need to demand it. A lot of times they'll fall on a pandemic saying we're not evaluating it this time, we're putting it out. And if you really feel like your child needs to be evaluated, demand it, because they absolutely have to offer that to you. When we started in this hybrid model, that is something that I said, we really need to look at this IEP, because the 30 minutes of services that my son is receiving are not adequate to what you're going to see with his behaviors. And within the first week, they told me no. He had a room clear, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's basically they have to lock down a room, teachers, kids out of the room, bring in security, all the special ed teachers. And he was throwing scissors. Okay. It wasn't the end of the world, but that is a major issue. And if that happens, a lot of times a student will be on suspension, or, they don't take those room clears lightly. So that was the impetus for them to open up this IEP and reevaluate, which at that time they're like, okay, instead of 30 minutes, he needs somebody with him, prompting him every 10 minutes. So that changed the game for what he was receiving, as far as support. So ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
I was about to say, he provided so much valuable information, but I think the thing you really taught me, and I hope our viewers, is be an advocate, dig, ask questions. Don't just sit back and let things happen to you and your children. There are resources out there, and there are people that want to help, but get out there and advocate on behalf of your child. Just to reintroduce what we're doing here, folks, my name is Brad Bodis, and I'm with the Bond & Bodis Law Offices, and this is the weekly Bond & Bodis Facebook Live. At Bond & Bodis, we help people with money problems. We know a lot of you are having money problems right now. So much going on in the world, so much going on in our communities. If you need help, we are offering absolutely free initial consultations. We're doing them by phone or video. We can do them from the comfort and the safety of your own home or office. We want to help you. Reach out for help. We do these Facebook Live episodes weekly. And each of these videos, if you know somebody that would benefit from what Susie's talking about today, each of these videos live on our Facebook page and on our firm's website. So if you know somebody with school-age children that could benefit, and all of us could, from what Susie's sharing today, refer them back to our Facebook page where they can watch this video. All of our videos are on our Facebook page. Last week, we did a very interesting episode with one of my law partners, Meredith Drummond, and we talked about the fact that you're not alone and you don't need to be embarrassed. If you need financial help, reach out for help. Meredith had some very reassuring words. This week, again, to reintroduce our guest, Susie Smith is a professional, but more importantly, she is a parent. She is a mother, and she has two school-age children that are suffering during this pandemic, as many of us are, but particularly with being able to go to school, being able to move along their educational path and receive the attention they need as school children. And Susie has learned to advocate for her children, and she has shared, and she is sharing today, what she's learned with people all over the country. Susie, we've had a couple of questions that have started to come in here, and I want to pass some of these along to you to see what your comments are. And the first one is spot on with, I think, what a lot of people are thinking, and that is it safe for my child to be back in school? We're in the midst of a pandemic. Is it safe for my child to be in school? How do you respond to that?
That's a great question. I think everybody has a different level of safety, and there is no unsafe area that we're touching right now, getting your mail, going to the grocery store, our day-to-day lives are going to have some level of risk. So you need to balance out the choices for your child. Do the risks outweigh the benefit? Science has spoken. Schools are the safest place for your kid to be. Children are not transmitters of this virus, especially young ones. And, I think the people who haven't been in an actual in-person environment during the pandemic, which has been almost everyone who's not a teacher or staff member, doesn't really see what is happening inside of schools. I was lucky enough to be in a school setting and actually get, a view as to what it looks like in one of our elementary schools. They support a 5-day-a-week program for, it's an emotional learning center. So looking at that as an option for my son, which I didn't even realize was a service that the district provided until I really, drilled down and asked. But I went to that center and was able to witness what it looks like. My own personal opinions, it'll kind of look like a concentration camp. It was a little bit unnerving to see kids grabbing their iPads and holding them like this and walking in line 6 feet apart. It was very, militaristic and a little bit hard to watch. But I do know that there's the safety measures are there. They're following these protocols to a T. Right now we're 6 feet mandated. Our district kids aren't even, they're 6 feet apart. But my kids both played sports in the fall, and they played when we were virtual. We were 100% virtual at the time, and they were playing flag football with no masks. So that's a touch sport, and they had no issues. So I know if they can play a sport, they can be in school, because that safety factor and what they're doing is at the utmost of what we're seeing in our community. So yes, it is safe for kids to be in school at 3 feet, at 6 feet. They're following all the protocols. The kids are wearing the mask. They're using, PPE. It's safer than any other public place I've seen or been in the last year personally. So, I think if you're struggling with that, look at what the issues are for your child. If you don't feel safe, the virtual learning, there are options, and if you can do it and do it successfully, then go for it. We have a lot of people enrolled in our cyber program, but our cyber program has a crazy failure rate right now. So I don't know that it's helping really everybody, but I would say trust your gut, do what's best, do what you think is best for your child. If you really feel that they're unsafe, ask to take a look, ask to see what the measures they're aligning to, and what kind of mandates they have internally, because I think you'll be surprised at how really strict they are on the safety precautions in these public schools.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think also, if you're a parent and you're concerned about the safety of sending your child back to school, do all you can to help make it a safe environment. Make sure your child understands the importance of wearing a mask and respecting social distancing to the extent possible. Be proactive, and if all parents will do this, then the situation's going to become better much more quickly and safer for our kids in schools. You raised an interesting issue, and that's participating in athletics. I can guarantee you here in Alabama, in the Deep South, that high school football did go on this past year.
Yeah, Friday nights, right?
And I can tell you, I heard very few instances of the virus being spread through high school sports. But certainly, if kids can be out in a football field with helmets but not masks and tackling one another, we can find a way for them to be safe in the classroom.
Yeah.
Susie, question here you addressed a little bit earlier, but if I fight for my child's rights, will it threaten their long-term educational career? But I think the parent is a little bit concerned about repercussions upon their child if they fight for their child. What do you say to that?
That's a valid concern. As I mentioned, this is not a popular place to be. That you're going to have some scrutiny from people that don't agree or want their kids to learn virtually. And I'm not trying to make choices for other people. It's your child. It should be your choice to keep them virtual or in person. But I do understand what that social impact looks like, and yeah, it's kind of an unpopular place to be, and I'm okay with that. Personally, I want my kids to know that I did everything possibly available in my power to ensure that they had what they needed during the hopefully hardest part of their lives. But schools can't. There's no negative repercussions that they can pinpoint or put on your child. And if you feel like some of those things are happening or could happen, put in an open records request about emails that include your child's name in the district. And you'll know very transparently if they are targeting or discussing your child in any inappropriate way. I have found that being vocal has provided very quick responses to what I may have questioned, if it's urgent or not. They're very quick to get back to me.
They know who you are, I bet.
Yeah, they do. They do. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but being a sales professional in business development, I don't really give up ever, and especially on things that I really think make sense. So yeah, it's you have to really just go with your gut and see, okay, or is the teacher not going to like them? The teachers, they like all the kids. They're not going to pinpoint your kid out. Our principal's maybe going to be annoyed with you, sure, and that's okay. One of the things that I did for our school was when they're going into the virtual model or into the hybrid model from virtual, I organized a lunch for teachers as a thank you. And I just connected with the business owner and had a free lunch delivered. So I want to make sure I'm not like a bad guy, because I'm trying to do what's right. But yeah, there are parents that'll come to me and say, give me the words. I don't know how to ask this. What do I do? Who do I speak to? And I become a voice for the people who can't speak up and are afraid to. So I think you just got to get out of your comfort zone a bit and worry less about your kid is going to be fine in the long-term impacts of a principal being annoyed with you. I mean, they get annoyed with parents all the time on all different topics. It doesn't have to just be about in-person education. So.
Susie, I'll share with you and to our viewer that asked this question. I'm a 60-year-old man, but I still remember the good feeling I had when I was in elementary school and my mom advocated on my behalf. You're doing the right thing. And to our viewer, don't ever be afraid to stick up for your child. Do it in a proactive manner. Do it as Susie is talking about here, and support. Your kids' teachers. They're in a tough situation too, but you can be vocal and supportive in a positive manner. So this question: Are there any research reports? And I don't know if you know, but that have been published on the impact of homeschool learning during COVID. Susie, do you know what the numbers say about what our kids, what the results will be from now close to a year of homeschool learning?
Yeah, I mean, we know the short term, and there are absolutely a ton of studies on the impacts of virtual learning. I know we touched on a number of those. From a suicide standpoint, kids are 10 times more likely to die from suicide than from COVID. Those statistics don't lie. And they're very, very troubling. I think you'll find different statistics in different areas as it relates to, minority gaps or achievement gaps, economic gaps. There's an issue with tech addiction, that we're seeing. And, the American Academy of Pediatrics essentially says that kids that are 5 years old shouldn't be on an iPad or screen for more than an hour a day. Now we stuck an iPad or something in their hands all day long. My kids were fighting over the iPad, a school iPad that had all kinds of apps or whatever. They went on YouTube, and thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I think those pieces are certainly troubling as it relates. But there are a ton of studies that we can certainly go into. A lot of resources nationwide. They're published from all different kinds of news sources. So, essentially Google it, and you'll find some really good reports from some news providers.
You have mentioned several organizations, and we put them on the banners on our screen, but is there any one or two particular, maybe Facebook groups or places that you would advise parents to go to get additional information, Susie?
100%. One of the nationwide groups that I found is Parents for In-Person Education. It's a Facebook page. It's called PIPE. So you can go on there and add yourself. And there's a community of like-minded parents. So if you have questions or you don't know where to start, I think that's a great place for people who have been involved in the cause for a long time. Locally here, we started a Facebook group that is a brick and mortar. So it's parents who are for advocating for in-person education for the choice. Our group has since been, we took it off of Facebook. There were some intruders and people are just trying to cause some issues. So we took it down, but at the time there were 1,000 individuals. I know that school districts around us have similar Facebook pages. So the one that there's a Downingtown area school district by us that's live and open. So it looks, statewide. Just go into Facebook and see what local groups are out there that you can just start to get some synergy with individuals. One person isn't going to make an impact, but find people who are part of this initiative and part of your tribe and stick with them. And I think you'll find that people can bring a lot to the table. Just in my local kind of group of parents, we have somebody who has 30 years advocating for students as a PhD in education. We have somebody in the pharmaceutical industry that works for Pfizer, so has all the information on the COVID vaccine firsthand from those internal reports. We have somebody that works with taxes and knows all about the state and county taxes, so can
Wow.
to that impact. Somebody who's homeschooling and has experience there. So I think definitely look at where your strengths are and get a group of individuals that can kind of like take a different initiative. I've been more of the bull and try to get meetings and things like that. And then there's other people that are great at research. So I think find your groups. One thing that we started doing was posting impact videos on Twitter. So it's a Twitter page that we have called Every Child Left Behind. A number of Twitter individuals that if you go and look on retweets and stories that we've covered, you'll find a lot of good resources there, a lot of individuals you might want to tap into. So there's state open schools sites and individuals. There's also a group called Teachers for Open Schools. And that was a really interesting find. I was able to connect with an association executive, somebody who built an association on helping teachers leave the unions, who was a former teacher of 20 years, and having a conversation, understanding how are the unions impacting on a local level, and what's keeping us from getting back to school. And That was really eye-opening to understand that, and then also understanding the teacher's perspective and getting, some synergy there. So there are a ton of resources that you can look at. Definitely Twitter, Facebook would be probably the easiest for social media. Yeah, I think there are some websites out there, but these groups are popping up readily, and we're having conversations on the side. I found a Wisconsin group through that I think it was through the Pipe group, and was able to connect with them, and then their consultancy group for Citizens for Change. So I think it's just digging, connecting with people, have conversations, and I think they'll lead you down a path where you'll find a lot more of these across the country.
A lot of information out there, and to our viewers, we've flashed a lot of this information along the bottom of our screen here, but we'll also put the actual links on our Facebook pages, so you're not trying to write down all of that information as it scrolls across. So, Susie, I want to be respectful of your time, and we're nearing the end of the hour, but is there anything you feel important that I've missed about this issue? Anything that you may want to share with our viewers that we may not have addressed?
That's a great question. I was looking forward to this, and I'm just thinking, I talk about this all day with everybody that I touch, going to the barbershop with my boys, somebody has a story. So thank you. I truly could talk about this all day. It's so near and dear to my heart. I think the one component that we kind of touched on was, the tech component and the tech addiction. And how we deal with that. We had a tech addiction expert actually speak to our district administrators and school board, and bring that to light, and what those impacts look like and how they might be impacted long term. But when we're talking about tech, there are other things that you also want to look out for. There's privacy and security concerns on a lot of these devices that kids can either, go in and adjust, or unfortunately, when our district went into a virtual learning environment, all of these school-equipped iPads had 0 parental controls on them, unless you were in the intranet of school and on their bandwidth. So that was really troubling, and something our district did not really touch on and tried to be quiet about. There were children looking at porn and really inappropriate websites. I found that my kids were looking at YouTube videos that were not appropriate, and I essentially had to wipe the iPad to nothing and said, can I just throw this out the window? Because one, my kid does not do well with taking the iPad away. He's addicted to it. He refuses to go in his class when it's virtual, and he does better when he's writing on a paper. He's more focused. So look at the privacy and security settings, and also do a download at the end of the week. There are reports that you can get from usage. You can set screen time and see what they're looking at. So kids are really sneaky. They'll jump off Zoom and jump back on and jump off. And I even within a couple of minutes that you're not looking. So do your due diligence. And if there are issues, absolutely bring them to the district and demand that they be fixed, because this is something that I've heard is an issue really across the country.
Susie, on that the issue of tech and controls and monitoring, when my oldest son turned about 5.5 years old, I realized at that point he probably knew more about the computer than I did. And I think a lot of parents are in that same situation. So I made it a point to get into tech and understand what was going on. And I stayed level with him until he was probably about 14, and then he's been well beyond me again. But I do encourage parents, there are a lot of controls you can use and that you need to use with respect to where your child goes when he or she is on the internet and on their personal computers or tablets. So educate yourself. It's important to do. Susie, thank you so much for what you've shared today. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I can tell you this, your two boys are very, very fortunate to have a mom like you. And thank you to the two of them for sharing their mom with us today. We appreciate how dogged you've been about this issue, how hard you've worked to get our kids back to school just as quickly as possible. And if we can ever be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But thank you. And on behalf of all of us at Bond and Modus, thank you for joining us today. And until next week, have a great week. Thank you.